been the victim here," Martin shouted, his voice echoing across the courtroom. He pointed a trembling finger at me, eyes wide with outrage, fake outrage, the kind you rehearse in a mirror. "She's hiding assets, manipulating accounts, and lying under oath." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I sat calmly at the plaintiff's table, dressed in navy blue, hands folded neatly, watching him dig his own grave with every word. My lawyer leaned over and whispered, "Let him keep talking." The judge, stern and silent, flipped through the evidence binder we'd submitted earlier that morning. Tab after tab, each one filled with documents Martin never thought I'd have. Emails. Bank transfers. Legal filings with dates that betrayed his story. The courtroom was packed. Some of Martin's friends had come, eager to watch my fall. A few of our former mutuals too, people who hadn't answered my calls in weeks. And now they were all watching, waiting, thinking this was the day Diana would be destroyed. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know I'd seen this betrayal coming. That long before Martin tried to ambush me with divorce papers and grab everything I'd built, I had quietly moved every asset out of his reach. They didn't know the woman they underestimated was about to take back control of her life, starting right here, right now, in front of everyone. Let him lie. Let him perform. He had no idea what was coming next. 3 months earlier, I found the truth by accident. Martin had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter while he showered, nothing unusual. But that morning, a single notification popped up in the corner, a new email from a law firm I didn't recognize. I shouldn't have clicked it. But something in my chest told me to. It wasn't just an email. It was part of a thread, dozens of messages between Martin and a high-profile divorce attorney, carefully planning a strategy to blindside me. There were attached drafts of divorce papers I hadn't seen, notes about asset division strategy, and a spreadsheet, color-coded and brutally detailed, laying out exactly what he planned to take from me. I scrolled down. There was even a line labeled, "Leverage, Emotional Instability," with bullet points beneath it, references to moments I'd cried during hard weeks at work, times I'd vented about stress. My own vulnerability, weaponized and cataloged. I backed away from the screen like it had burned me. My legs trembled. My throat dried out. 11 years of marriage, 11 years of sacrifices, support, late-night strategy sessions helping his business ideas that never got off the ground, and now he was planning to gut me and walk away. But what made it worse, what truly crushed something inside me, was that I hadn't seen it coming. Martin had kissed me goodbye just that morning, told me to have a good meeting, texted me midday to ask if I wanted sushi for dinner. He was charming, present, loving, even. And all the while, he was preparing to ambush me in court, paint me as unstable, and take everything I'd built. I didn't cry that day. Not outwardly. But something inside me hardened. And in that silence, as I stared at the glowing screen, one quiet promise formed in my mind: you will not win. Martin always thought I was the softer one. He liked to brag that I was smart in an artsy kind of way, as if my MBA from Wharton and the marketing agency I'd built from scratch were just hobbies. He told people I was lucky when I landed big clients, never once acknowledging the all-nighters, the negotiations I'd navigated, or the ironclad contracts I'd personally reviewed line by line. But Martin never paid attention to the details. Not really. What he didn't know was that 6 months before I found those emails, I'd already begun moving assets. Quietly. Legally. Intentionally. Not because I expected betrayal, but because I'd seen too many women lose everything in messy divorces. I'd set up an irrevocable trust with an airtight clause that put everything, my business, my stock options, even the brownstone in my name, under a legal firewall that couldn't be touched. Not by creditors. Not by courts. And certainly not by a soon-to-be ex-husband who thought charm was a legal strategy. And even that wasn't the full extent of it. I had started keeping records of Martin's spending, his consulting firm that produced no invoices but funneled money out of our joint account, the suspicious transfers to a woman listed only as CM in his contacts. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I knew Martin. If he felt cornered, he'd move faster, file earlier, make mistakes. So I let him believe I was oblivious. I smiled. I kissed him goodnight. I let him think he still held the upper hand. But behind the scenes, I was preparing for war. Because Martin wasn't just trying to take my money, he was trying to erase my independence. And if he wanted to find out what I was really made of, I was going to show him, just not in the way he expected. Martin filed for divorce 2 weeks later, like clockwork. The papers were served on a Monday morning, slipped under the door of my office while I was leading a team strategy session. I kept talking through the campaign pitch like nothing had happened. But inside, I felt the chill of his declaration of war. The next few weeks were a flurry of legal ambushes. Martin's lawyers moved fast, filing emergency motions to freeze joint accounts and demand full disclosure of my finances. They claimed I was attempting to hide marital assets, that I had manipulated joint funds without spousal consent. Worse, he started planting stories. Mutual friends stopped calling. Rumors began to swirl. Diana's having a breakdown. Diana's been funneling money offshore. Martin's heartbroken. He's just trying to protect what's fair. I'd walk into meetings and feel the air shift. Clients looked at me like I was fragile glass. One even asked if I needed to take a step back for a while. Martin wasn't just trying to bankrupt me. He wanted to ruin me. He thought if he moved fast enough, if he flooded me with motions and lies and whispers, I'd crack. That I'd settle just to make it stop. And for a moment, it almost worked. The weight was crushing. The court deadlines. The poisoned friendships. The betrayal. But what Martin didn't realize was that I wasn't standing alone. I had built more than a business over the years. I had built loyalty. My assistant started forwarding me messages from his PR contacts. A longtime client quietly offered to testify to Martin's absence from financial meetings. My trust attorney reassured me, everything is airtight. They can bark, but they can't bite. Still, the pressure mounted. Martin upped his demands. He wanted half of everything, even assets that had never been jointly owned. He claimed mental cruelty, submitted falsified text messages. He told the court he supported me, emotionally and financially. For years, every lie was designed to shake me, to weaken my resolve. But he didn't understand that every attack only made me more certain. This wasn't just a personal fight anymore. It was about every woman who had ever been told she was too emotional, too delicate, too dependent to protect what was hers. Martin wanted a war. So I gave him one, on my terms. Martin believed I would react emotionally. That I'd scream, beg, or maybe crumble. That was his first mistake. While he flailed in court with dramatics and half-truths, I played the long game. I wasn't just defending, I was constructing a case so solid, so surgical, that even the judge would have no choice but to see through the noise. I began with the paper trail. Every account transfer. Every trust transaction. Dated. Documented. Signed. I worked closely with my trust attorney to prepare a full report for the court, including notarized filings and dated email correspondences, proof that these assets were moved long before Martin filed for divorce, and well within legal boundaries. Then came the forensic accountant. I hired one of the best in the state. She combed through our finances and, within 2 weeks, flagged multiple inconsistencies on Martin's side, over $100,000 withdrawn from our joint account, labeled as consulting expenses, transfers to an LLC linked to his supposed cousin, payments to a luxury hotel booked under a woman's name that definitely wasn't mine. I didn't submit everything at once. I let Martin speak first in court. Let him spin his narrative. Let him perjure himself on record, claiming he had no access to outside accounts and had never misused joint funds. And then, quietly, efficiently, we filed our countersuit. We submitted a full audit report to the judge, along with receipts, screenshots, and cross-referenced transactions. We submitted character letters from professional colleagues, attesting to my role as sole owner and operator of my business. We submitted the email Martin sent to his lawyer, titled, Timeline for Asset Control, Divorce Strategy. That one, in particular, made the judge pause. When my lawyer read it aloud in court, Martin visibly paled. His attorney tried to object, but the damage was done. And as if that wasn't enough, we filed a motion to dismiss all of Martin's asset claims under bad faith litigation, along with a request that he be held financially responsible for my legal costs. I wasn't angry in court. I didn't need to be. I was exacting, prepared, patient, and every move I made was rooted in facts, not feelings. Because while Martin was playing checkers with accusations, I had already built a chessboard of consequences. And it was almost time for checkmate. The courtroom was so quiet, you could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing. Martin was on the stand, his tone confident, too confident. He was telling the judge how I'd emotionally manipulated him into signing things he didn't understand, how I had secretly siphoned off funds, how he had sacrificed his career to support mine. He even teared up. A perfect performance. And then my attorney stood, calmly, unbothered, holding a crisp folder in her hand. Mr. Kendrick, she said, flipping open a document, could you please read the subject line of this email dated May the 4th of last year? Martin blinked. Hesitated. Read it aloud, please, she repeated. He squinted at the paper, his voice suddenly dry. Timeline for Diana asset liquidation. The courtroom exhaled collectively. The judge's brow arched. Is this your email address? My attorney asked. Yes. And this is your signature at the bottom. Yes. And you confirm this email predates your divorce filing by 3 months. Martin's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His attorney shifted uncomfortably beside him. We weren't done. Next, the forensic accountant took the stand. With a calm, authoritative voice, she walked the judge through Martin's hidden accounts, the funneling of money to his mistress LLC, and the fabricated, consulting, expenses. Then came the final nail, a copy of a signed non-disclosure agreement between Martin and a private investigator, one he had hired months earlier to follow me, to dig up dirt. The report came up empty, but the action spoke volumes. The judge leaned back, looked at Martin like he had never seen him before. I find this case to be a calculated and malicious attempt to unjustly claim assets that were never in joint possession, he said, his voice hard. This court dismisses all of Mr. Kendrick's claims with prejudice and orders that he be held liable for all legal costs incurred by the plaintiff. Martin's mouth fell open. He turned to his lawyer, who avoided his gaze. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just stood, gathered my papers, and walked out of that courtroom like a woman who had buried the past and was done digging. He had underestimated me every step of the way. And now, everything he'd plotted, lied, and schemed for was gone. It was a gray morning when the final divorce decree came in the mail. No fanfare. No drama. Just a stamped envelope confirming what I already knew. Martin was out of my life, out of my finances, and out of my future. The court awarded me everything he tried to take and more. His claims were dismissed with prejudice. He was ordered to pay my legal fees in full. His reputation, once polished and charming, now reeked of opportunism and deceit. Word spread quickly among our circle. Clients pulled out of his remaining ventures. The cousin he siphoned money to, gone without a trace. He called me once, just once, after the ruling. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was small, full of the desperation of a man who'd lost control. He asked if we could talk. Foreclosure. I deleted it without listening to the rest. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you claim. And I did. I sold the penthouse. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to shed every wall that had once housed betrayal. I moved to a quiet town by the coast. Bought a modest home with high windows and a garden I could tend with my hands. I started painting again. Not for profit. Not for show. Just for me. The business still thrived, but I stepped back. Promoted the women I had mentored for years, women who, like me, had been underestimated before they were respected. Peace wasn't loud. It didn't arrive with applause. It came in the form of early mornings, soft music, and the deep, knowing comfort that I had protected myself, not just legally, but emotionally. Martin lost far more than money. He lost the mask he wore so well. The world saw him for what he was. And I emerged with my dignity intact, my freedom reclaimed, and my future wide open. He thought he was playing a game of strategy. But I wasn't playing games. I was building a life. And in the end, I walked away not just with victory, but with myself.